Hello everybody, welcome back to the 1.0 Exploration series. Surprise! I wasn't originally going to make another part of this until maybe next week or 2 weeks from now. But with all the support the last part got, I figured I'll treat you all a little bit. I'll address that more at the end of the video. So for now, let's explore Subterranean Shunning-Grounds. Before going to the area proper, I did make sure to talk to Dung Eater, get the key from him. I'm not necessarily doing every single quest line in the game, but I do want to get to the main ones, like the ending related ones for instance, and some of the ones I know by heart and can do easily. And I did collect a couple of seedbed curses already, so. When first opening the gate that's right after the well, I immediately got the Subterranean Shunning-Grounds prompt, which is definitely different from current patch that shows up later. But funnily enough, actually shows up again where it's supposed to, but it seems to be the sub-area kind of font, because it's a little bit smaller than normal. There is no blood-soaked set, the ones next to the rune. The Shadow Bait incantation is called Distraction. Very magical spell, indeed. You can still find the Mohg shackle near the lobsters, and spoilers, it works the same way. But there's no Somberstone Scarab in this little pipe. Making our way back to the normal level of the Shunning-Grounds. There's a Spirit Caller Snail still summoning enemies as normal, but this one actually leaves the body whenever it's killed. It doesn't disappear like normal. And also you have to kill the enemies again after it's dead. They don't disappear immediately. Next to the corpse, there's no Halic Tree Talisman +1 either, so that's another talisman missing. There's another Spirit Caller Snail a little further ahead for no reason because it didn't seem to summon any enemies. Making our way to the muddy waste segment of the pipe system. Near where the Revenant is, the Grey Violet here is actually a golden great arrow in 1.0. In the well-looking pit area, there's no Mimic Grace. The Scarab with the Somberstone isn't here either. There's no string at the end of this. A little bit further, there's no Warming Stone. Behind this Morala, there's no Poison Stones. And near these Basilisks, there's no Nomad Ashes. So yet another Spirit Ashes that are gone. This particular Omen normally drops the Omen Bairn, the tool spell, but it doesn't in 1.0. And in this same segment, there's no Golden Centipede loot either. Going forward to the second pipe system, there's an invisible wall in this particular end of the pipe. Normally it can actually go to the end and presumably jump off, but for whatever reason there's just a wall here. There was another title card for the Shunning-Grounds that popped up whenever I was following the rat that shows you where to go. And near this living jar there's no ritual pot, so yet another ritual pot missing. When we get to the Illusion Mohg, it's actually playing the real Mohg song, Mohg Lord of Blood, instead of the more subdued version, Omen Illusion. It even had the phase transition part of the song, even though there's nothing extra happening, just the normal fight keeps going. No complaints from here, I like that song. But it definitely adds another layer to the whole illusion versus real Mohg situation. Here's a really subtle change that you might not even noticed. The actual boss name is Mohg the Fell Omen, instead of Mohg the Omen. Which I kinda like because it gives more connection to the Margit fight, which is also called the Fell Omen, and linking them together more directly. And kind of giving you a tip perhaps that if you already fought Morgott at least, that this is not the real Mohg. The only other change I could find is that the little explosion attack he's holding in his hand for a few seconds doesn't show the fireball effect until he's about to explode it in front of you. But the attack's the same, it's just a visual bug. Before we go down to the Frenzied Flame, let's go through a couple of things first and then we'll get to that towards the end. First, let's go do the Dung Eater quest that we can for now. When I actually found the Dung Eater in the sewers, the dialogue and everything seems the same, and it has so far, and it will for the rest of the quest lines that I see today. But there's no sound effect for the Dung Eater bashing his head. Whenever you free him, he doesn't leave a note behind in the round table telling you to meet him at the moat. I did try and see if I can get Blackguard to move over to the moat as well, but it doesn't seem to be a thing yet, so this questline seems pretty incomplete. The Blackguard isn't here, normally there's just a corpse on a chair to kind of replace him, and this one's still here but it's a different spot. It's closer to where he come from, instead of towards the back of this area. I stalled the fight quite a bit, but Dung Eater never did his Ash of War, the Shriek of Milos, but he did use the tool spell that we mentioned earlier, the Omen Barn. It turns out there was a crab in 1.0 in this segment, so yeah, I made a mistake in the last video. To make it up though, I did just have the crab kill Dung Eater for me. I wanted him to get death blighted because he can do that in the later patch at least, but he just ended up dying to melee. Now, Dung Eater does still drop his sword, but the name of the Ash of War is Sword Art's name, 1015. This is the most blatant placeholder thing that we've seen in this entire version so far. And it was really funny and jarring to see for the first time. With this and the distraction spell earlier, I'm just rolling on the floor of this video. Oh, and by this point, Rogier ended up croaking, so he dropped his set. But it's called the Sorcerer's set more or less, instead of Spellblade set. Now let's take a look at the Leyndell Catacombs. This lootable Grave Glovewort is replaced by Moon Egg in 1.0. The Rod Resin here is replaced by Budding Moss in 1.0. The sort of illusion of the Dead Omen is still there, where you're supposed to think that you kind of loop back and an enemy spawned. I just thought it was interesting to note that that's been a thing since 1.0. Okay, let's now make our way to the Three Fingers. You actually don't have to get as close to the structure in the back of Mohg's room to open it. Pretty much as soon as you get to the chest, it'll start opening by itself. Which I actually don't mind because it can be a little bit like, oh, there's something there, and you just don't look at it closely. Something you might not know actually. There's actually another Morgott barrier here, blocking you from going to the Frenzied Flame until after you defeat Morgott. However, this one is here in 1.0, unlike the Forbidden Lands one. It doesn't have any readable prompt though, it's just blocking your way. Immediately you can see that there's not any yellow embers in the ground here, which is an easy farm spot for those, so those are gone. There's no nomadic merchant set in the first breakable structure here, that has to be broken by the enemy. There's also no Eyes of Yellow in the second one you can break, and as a matter of fact, none of them have anything. So no Mikola's Needle, no later on either. The Shabiri Cookbook, which is obviously normally named Frenzied Cookbook in release, is in a different spot. It's just on one of those normal walkways, instead of in this little nook here. There's also no Fingerprint Shield. I know that's one that a lot of people like to use. But I did find the Inescapable Frenzy incantation, so that's still here. Now I did mention in the last part that I wasn't going to do the Frenzied Flame thingy, so I don't piss off Melina and such. But then it hit me, why didn't I just do it in a different character? So I just used one that I had on the side to double check things in 1.0, and did open the door. I overlapped the two cutscenes side by side, there's no differences whatsoever. And the dialogue from both Melina and Hayeta is pretty much the same. But whenever Hayeta died, the Frenzied Flame seal was called Spark of Frenzy instead. Alongside that, she also dropped the Traveling Maiden set Light, which I'm currently unsure if it's corresponding to the missing Finger Maiden set that was in the Church of Inhibition normally, but wasn't there in 1.0. Mine is ahead at least. Or if it's supposed to be the altered version of the actual Traveling set in post-release. But I guess we'll have to find out in the Mountaintops video. Flames don't appear on her corpse as she dies, but after you reload the area with the Grace resting, it does leave some flames behind. And that is all for the video. Undoubtedly that was a very short one. I had less than 2 pages of notes. And a lot of them were just missing items, so not a lot to discuss per se, but some of these are pretty interesting regardless. And really funny apparently. But yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, I did want to treat y'all to just another video real quick, since I knew it was going to be on the shorter end. I had a feeling, it's just a smaller area. And after all the love that y'all showed me in the Leyndell video, from the pretty good premiere to just the absolute explosion of views I got and the amount of subs I got, putting me over 2,000 subs now, was absolutely insane and not expected at all. Despite knowing that Leyndell was one of the parts a lot of people were looking forward to, I didn't expect it to blow up the whole series. Literally the same day I posted that video, the Limgrave one got to 10,000 views, which is the first to reach that far. And then immediately that same day or the next day, it crossed that. So it was actually unbelievable. So yeah, if you're returning from that, or if you've stuck from the beginning, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This whole series was sort of a leap of faith in the beginning. It was just something that I thought could work out. I was going to test the waters and see how it would work out. In the beginning, I think the Limgrave one did okay for my size after a little bit, but certainly nothing amazing. But I decided to still push it just to see how far I could take it. Not to mention I was just generally curious how much the game has changed from 1.0 version. And while I'll probably do this series regardless of how well it's been doing, it's definitely a good incentive to get it going, Because otherwise I would do one of these a month, 2 months, And it's just something that's nice to know I can fall back on at any point, even if I have a bunch of different video ideas. Not to say I don't want to do them, I definitely do. But consistency is nice, Even if some parts don't do as well as others. They generally all do pretty good for my channel size at the moment, so I can't really ask for more than that. Anyway, long-winded way to say thank you for watching and supporting this series so far. I'm glad it is something y'all look forward to. And while we're on the subject, next one is going to be Mountaintops of the Giants. Depending on how much there is to cover, I might split it up into 2 parts. It is kind of an empty area, relatively speaking. It's very expensive, but not a whole lot of loot to find throughout it. But I guess I'll have to see how much there is to discuss, period. After that, I'm not actually sure, because there's a few ways I could go about it. I could go straight into Far Missoula. I could go for the Consecrated Snowfield. And if I go to the Consecrated Snowfield, do I just go to Mohg Palace? Do I go to the Halleck Tree? Do I finish the Depths finally? You know, so I might actually put up a poll at some point, maybe when I'm done with mountaintops, and see what y'all prefer to see. But still kind of playing around with that idea, because I do want to make this kind of make sense a little bit. Anyway, if you're somehow still here and haven't picked up what I'm doing, I'm doing a full playthrough of 1.0 version of Elden Ring and recording all the differences I find and dividing them into areas. So I have 13 parts I think now, and there's still a handful left. So if you think this is interesting to you, consider subscribing. It's not the only thing I do, but I do try to come back to it every 2 weeks to a month, depending on what I have planned. But yeah, regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I do hope to see you again. So see you all around.